Welcome back, horror fans. Okay, let's dive into this. Tonight, we're unpacking a piece of modern horror lore that perfectly captures those deep, late-night fears we all have. It starts exactly how you'd expect a truly terrifying story to begin, with a baseline of total, comforting normalcy. Imagine you're in your room. It's late. The house is completely quiet. And then, there's a disturbance. Just a simple knocking on your bedroom door. At first, you brush it off, right? You think, oh, it's just my younger brother pulling a prank, or it's just the house settling. But as we're about to uncover, brushing off the unknown is exactly how this nightmare begins.
Notice the time here, 2:14 a.m. This specific number becomes a haunting motif throughout this whole explainer. Picture it glowing right there in the dark, heavy shadows of the bedroom. It establishes this terrifyingly repetitive pattern. Every single night, at exactly this minute, the intrusion starts. It's not random at all. It's calculated. It waits for that exact moment when the world is at its absolute quietest and your defenses are at their absolute lowest. And then the silence breaks. 3 slow knocks. Just picture the heavy wood of the door taking the impact. Knock. The pacing here in the story is incredibly methodical. We aren't talking about a frantic, urgent tapping. No, it's slow. It's very deliberate.
Knock.
Between each sound, there's this heavy, trembling silence that just lingers in the air. As the audience, we actually feel that intense dread building up in the empty space between the strikes. Honestly, that quiet anticipation, it's almost worse than the noise itself. Knock. Now, on that very first night, right after this final slow impact, our protagonist gets up and opens the door. And what do they find? Absolutely nothing. The hallway is completely empty. They even go around checking every single room in the house, only to find the rest of the family fast asleep. So they do what literally any of us would do to cope with something so bizarre. They simply laugh it off, blame their overactive imagination, and go right back to bed. And this brilliantly illustrates the terrifying chronological escalation of the story. Day by day, night by night, the threat multiplies. We move from a suspected sibling prank on night 1 to a chilling visual confirmation of a dark figure on night 2. This leads to night 3, where the protagonist resorts to that deeply instinctual yet utterly useless human defense mechanism just hiding under the covers. Finally, that escalation brings us to the ultimate breach. Section 2. The dark figure emerges, a shift in the shadows. So we now face a vital psychological shift, the stark contrast between the empty hallway and the claustrophobic bedroom. See, on that second night, when the knocks returned at exactly 2:14 a.m., the protagonist opened the door immediately. And down at the end of the hallway, right near the stairs, a tall, completely motionless dark figure stood frozen in the shadows. The protagonist blinked just once, and the figure vanished. Because of that terrifying visual confirmation, the hallway is no longer safe. The bedroom, which is supposed to be a sanctuary, suddenly shrinks into an inescapable trap, because the protagonist absolutely refuses to open that door again. And because they stop engaging, the external threat changes its tactics. That slow, methodical knocking, it's about to be replaced by something much, much worse.
Because one night, the routine shatters. The sound is completely different. It's louder, far more aggressive. Bang! It's a sudden, shockingly loud strike against the wood that sends a jolt of pure adrenaline straight into your racing heart. Bang! The aggressive escalation here is just terrifying. It doesn't sound like someone wanting your attention anymore. It sounds as if whoever or whatever is out there is trying to physically break the door down and rip right through the wood to get inside the room.
Bang! And then, complete, absolute silence. The sudden, abrupt absence of sound is deafening. It's just this agonizing void. Lying there in the pitch black, the protagonist slowly reaches for their phone. Wide, panicked eyes stare blindly into the darkness as trembling, shaking hands fumble around for the glowing screen. Section 3. The Unknown Caller. Technological Horror. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the shift to a totally different kind of terror. Just picture that grainy, old phone screen glowing in the dark, lighting up the room, with an unknown number call flashing at exactly 2:14 a.m. With hands trembling uncontrollably, they press answer. For a few agonizing seconds, there's nothing. Just the cold, harsh hiss of static. And then, Cutting right through the interference, a distorted, echoing voice whispers, "Why won't you let me in?" The sheer terror of that static-filled question completely paralyzes them, and before they can even take a single breath, the call just immediately ends.
Section 4. The closet door opens. The breach of sanctuary.
Because the terror, it doesn't end with the dial tone. Slowly across the room, the protagonist's closet door begins to creak open in agonizing slow motion. The hinges whine in the dark. The protagonist is completely frozen with paralyzing fear, staring directly into the pitch-black void inside that open closet, absolutely unable to breathe. The one room in the house that was supposed to keep the monsters out, it's been utterly compromised. The threat has crossed the threshold. It's no longer a dark figure out in the hallway. The voice is inside the room.
From that oppressive darkness within their own sanctuary, the distorted, echoing whisper speaks again. Open the door. This brilliantly flips the spatial horror completely on its head. Think about it. Why would the voice be demanding to open the door if it's already inside the room? The psychological weight of this realization is absolutely suffocating. Section 5. Underneath the bed. The final realization. So the crucial point is what happens next, as the protagonist slowly looks away from the dark closet and toward their locked bedroom door in sheer, unadulterated terror. The pieces violently fall into place. The voice inside the room telling them to open the door. The agonizingly loud, aggressive banging they thought was trying to break into the bedroom. The threat had fundamentally shifted its origin point. The knocking is no longer coming from outside the room. The entity isn't trying to get in, it's trying to get out. The knocking was coming from underneath the bed, the very place our protagonist was hiding. It is an absolute masterclass in tension and subverted expectations, literally turning our ultimate safe haven into a deadly trap. And as we wrap up this explainer, I have to leave you with one final chilling thought to take with you into the dark tonight. When was the last time you checked underneath your bed?